Hello and welcome to Between Two Peers, a live stream show where the hosts invite a guest from around the known world to answer your pressing questions about life, the universe, and everything. This week is sponsored by Sidecars because they're a foo-foo drink with a motorcycle gang name, or Henry Weinhard's beer because the bottle caps. It's a funny story. You'll probably hear about it later. My name is Tulia Alori. I am a Laurel from the West Kingdom. I'm also a court baroness. I am broadcasting tonight from my new home. We're in the process of moving, and so we are. Well, things are a little in flux, but I've moved home to Sweet Home Sinagua, back where I was born and bred. So, having a bit of a feel and really excited about it. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to my gorgeous co-host Helga.
Hi, I'm Helga. I'm a knight, a royal peer, and a pelican in the Kingdom of the West. And tonight I am feeling sassy AF, probably brought to you by our lovely guest who has helped me improve my level of sass through our interactions in my entire SCA career. Because I can guarantee tonight we're going to hear A.S. Roxforsoft's stories. You are going to learn the roots of some of the things across the known world that all of us do because he was there for the beginning. And with that, our guest tonight is Viscount Leon. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
I'm Viscount Leon von Schrecken. I am a Viscount of the Principality of the Mist in the Kingdom of the West, and I've been a knight for about 35 years, and was squire to Duke Radnor. Started out fighting in January of '83, and I was knighted in March of '85. So it took me just over a little bit, 2 years from being a screaming pell to being a member of the chivalry, and won my first cornet like year and a half later. And really love the SCA. I do field heraldry. I like doing some book heraldry, but I'm mostly a field herald too. So I've had, funny court stories and things like that. So mostly a tourney fighter, although I've done some war fighting recently. So anyway, that's me.
Is this where we, yeah, so I was going to ask though, is this where Helga mentions that your peerage is older than she is?
I was going to do that at some point during the show because his peerage is older than me.
Helga, there's many things about me that are older than you, so
I was in kindergarten.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that tunic you're wearing is older than me.
89?
Oh, no, it's I'm like 3 years?
So for those...
It could have been used as swaddling cloth for you?
Yeah, so I am end of 86, like end of 86.
Yeah, so yeah, this came relatively speaking right after my first reign in '88. It was they did it for all the Western Viscounts and Viscountesses, and it was so yeah.
We're going to hear more about it.
We're going to be asking about
it. No doubt.
By the way, this is for those of us who have never met my little kitten Ray. This is my baby kitten Ray. She is kind of a barnacle. And the only reason you haven't seen her before on the show is because I was in the basement broadcasting, and now I'm in the house, and so she's going to be here the whole.
We might have to nuke the drink when somebody's pet shows up on the screen rule just because of Ray.
Well, yeah, no doubt.
Just like a constant sippy straw.
Anyways, let's get the show on the road. Okay.
So with that, I'm actually going to roll into the drinking game rules. Remember, folks, this can be anything you want to drink. It does not have to be alcohol. We believe in consent and playing along with the game as you see fit. So with that, here are the rules for the game. Host, drink, not host. Sorry, my bad. Going a little fast there. Drink whenever a host or guest uses a non-SCA name when referring to the other. Drink when somebody's pet appears on screen. Hashtag maybe not so much when Ray shows up. Drink when somebody uses a soapbox or somebody calls us on a soapbox, i.e. audience, play along and call us out. Drink when somebody uses the term spite sprinkles or toe beans. And tonight, the hosts are adding an extra rule to the game for our guest. Drink anytime our guest mentions Duke Radnor.
you guys are gonna get shit-faced, no question.
We figured.
Secret. I'm not drinking alcohol tonight. I'm dry tonight.
For our beloved guest, what is your rule of the evening?
Well, I was gonna say every time I use Radnor, so.
Okay.
But because it will be hard for me not to mention His Grace's name, so that or if I use a 4-letter F word, that would be the other one.
Oh, okay. So we'll add that on there because then we have both. So anytime you use the 4-letter F word,
right?
Because we're not drinking every time I do. That'd be
Yeah,
bad.
no doubt.
Fort.
Yes.
Fact. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're using the any 4-letter F word here.
Well, I was. How about let's keep it simple because it looks like we're probably going to be drinking a lot anyway, and you're not drinking alcohol, so let's just make it fuck, and we're good.
Oh, everybody drink. All right. With that, we're going to roll into the questions for the evening.
Okay.
All right. I like how it just says guest rule of the episode. Fuck.
Yep.
All right. So this is our bit here where we kind of devote all of these questions to you, Leon, because we want to get to know you better. Everybody's heard us for the last 50 odd whatever episodes. So let's find out about you. First question. How did you find the SCA? Okay,
long story, short story. I'll try to make it quick. So during the 76 bicentennial, I worked for a school district doing a recreation of the battles of Lexington and Concord. We literally had 2,000 high school students running around on the streets of San Mateo, Burlingame, and Millbrae, being the British Army or the rebels. One of the groups at the high school that I used to go to, who were actually the American colonials, we met them and interacted with them, and they were into gaming. So we started gaming. We were doing Dungeons and Dragons and diplomacy and board games and things like that. And one of them went to Berkeley after he graduated from high school, went to Berkeley and found the SCA at UC Berkeley and came back and said, guys, I found this thing. It's Dungeons and Dragons, only it's real. And there was like 12 or 15 of us in this gaming group. And so we all kind of, and I worked at a Montgomery Ward's selling vacuum cleaners and sewing machines. So I made a tunic, and all of us made tunics, or we found something that looked Ren Fair, and we went to Purgatorio at Big Trees. It was the one that Kevin and Patrice were big king and queen. And that's how I found the SCA, and that's how I found the SCA.
I like how there's so much more there.
There is.
And I wonder if it has to do with Radnor. And that's
no, not at all. That's in my second SCA life. This is my first SCA life as a member of the Fringe.
I think we're going to end up having to ask about like your SCA lives here, because
I have
going to come up later. I think we're going to just build one in for that.
Yeah. So the 15 people who showed up at this event, there were nobody in the SCA playing in central San Mateo County. The nearest group was in San Francisco. And so they hooked us up and we went up to a San Francisco meeting. Now, all the people in San Francisco were completely different than us. Many of us in our little group were socialists and anti-war people. And these people up in San Francisco were very conservative, fairly religious, and we were not. And they were really into puns. And we recognized early on that, like 5 minutes into that, we were going to have a problem when one of their guys came in and they had a jar in front of the table that was the pun fund. And they were like 25 cents a pun. And he puts a $5 bill in and says, "This should cover me for the evening." Oh. And we were like, so our household, we formed a democratic household where we elected our head of household. And
I think we're actually going to get into some of that a little bit.
I'm sure there's some questions, but anyway, so we basically formed our own little group, mm-hmm. and then just kept, shunning them, the San Francisco group, and one thing led to another. But that's kind of. But we were very fringy. We didn't know anybody. There was no one who were had any award of arms or anything. So literally, the classic fringe group.
Yeah, you're the many lives of Leon von Schrecken.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I was probably Leon von Schrecken Blitz at the time. So
Nice.
All right.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go to the next question because this is a super serious one for every SCAer that's ever SCA'd real hard. Why did you choose your heraldry?
Well, so this is my second heraldry. In my first life heraldry, I had a red lion on a blue field that passed in some like 6-month period when the College of Heralds was allowing fimbriation. The problem was when I came back in my second incarnation, I couldn't draw a freaking lion, right? So I needed something that I could draw. So I like triangles. It's a geometrically strong emblem. And so 3 swords in triangle was an unusual array of swords, which made it easy to pass. And the colors are the San Francisco 49er colors, red and gold. And that's how I got my heraldry.
Big fan of the red and gold.
Oh yeah, well, if you see pictures of me of my original armor, I had a red brig and a bright gold helm. I looked just like the 49ers. It was intentional. But I grew up.
As we all do.
As we all do.
Yeah. All right. So you've been Prince of the Mists how many times?
3.
3 times. Okay. So this question is from Antonio. How do people from kingdoms without principalities react to your title?
That's a really funny question.
So you're a Viscount.
Yeah. Yes, I am a Viscount. Well, so I was Prince at Penzic, and which is a cool gig. It's a really cool gig. But every time someone, this is Prince Leon, they would look at me and say, "So when do you step up?" It's like, no, I'm a landed prince. I am a prince of a principality within the Kingdom of the West. So that was the most unique response I got was, so when do you step up? Like I was the Tanis or the heir, and I wasn't. So there, asked and answered, I think.
Yeah, it was. So they just didn't. They were like, "Oh, okay."
Ba-da-bum.
All right. Okay.
Next one.
Yeah.
What is that tunic?
Oh.
And what is the Gray Horde?
Okay, so after about 7 or 8 or 9 years of in the West having principalities where they actually had princes, the joke was you could swing a cat and hit a Viscount of the West.
Not this cat.
Not this cat, but you could swing a cat and hit a Viscount of the West, or a Viscountess. And so somebody kind of got the burr under their saddle and went out and bought a whole bunch of gray material and made 40 or 45 surcoats and gave them to all the past Viscounts and Viscountesses. We became the Gray and Faceless Legion of Western Viscounts, and this was our tunic. Although some of us, thanks to Jade, became Fey and Graceless Viscounts of the West, because Jade, in like 9 of his or 10 of his reigns, defeated a Viscount to win the crown, and thus kept Viscounts from getting any further ado. This is also the tunic I wore at Penzic, and I was fighting when the king, whose name I cannot say, was king of the West at Penzic. And we're on the war field, and His Majesty had led us kind of on a flanking maneuver, and there was a hold called, and I was like 40 feet behind him, and we were fighting for the mid-realm that day. So there's a mid-realm unit, and they had been engaged with an eastern unit, and the Leon went, and like the mid-realm unit of like 30 people just died to a man, and it's me and 30 feet away are like 25 Eastern war unit looking at me, and literally they did a left face and marched someplace else, right? And I'm telling this story to someone, and Richard of Aldertree says, Leon, think about it for a second. You were wearing a surcoat that had a bazillion coronets on it. You were the last guy they were going to engage and fight. It was like, whoa, save my butt, because I was going to get my ass kicked. It's like, they ran away. So this is a good talisman.
We might have to bring that back. It's just going to involve a lot of gray fabric and a lot of stamping.
Jeffrey Scott did a round. I have tunics from both runs. I gave my tunic to Mark Darendell because he was a Viscount of the Mist and he didn't have one, and I had two, and I don't need two, so I was generous.
Awesome. You are a generous man.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this project, it's a nasty project because you have to silk screen the crowns on the gray, and then you have to, anyway.
New tech, fabric stamping.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that if you're doing it for one outfit, fabric stamping is great. When you're trying to do 40 at a time, you can just keep bringing the material, right? So it's quantity.
Yeah. Okay, next question. So this is one we kind of edited from Antonio. It says, with your own journey to knighthood taking less than a decade overall, what do you feel has changed or evolved concerning the expectations for becoming a knight from when you were elevated to today's standards?
Oh, well, okay. So that's a two-part answer. The first part is I really don't think that today's candidates plan and figure out how to go from being a beginning fighter to knighthood. There's a path, and everyone's path is different, and I get it, but they don't think about logistically what they have to do to get on the path and stay on the path, and so it's really easy for them to get knocked off the path. That's one thing. That's on the side of the candidate. My feeling is that the Order of Chivalry has consistently raised the bar to make it more and more difficult for a candidate to start to finish and get elevated in the same time frame that they got elevated when they were on the journey 15, 20, 30, whatever years ago. And I think the other problem is that, at least in the West, that our award system sucks. So there's no way to go from...
I didn't. You said it.
There's no way for a candidate to go from an embryonic fighter to chivalry and have benchmarks to understand where they are in the process. And so the guy who has an oak leaf is equal to everybody else who has an oak leaf, and then one guy gets knighted, and there's no way to differentiate between the 55 people who have oak leaves, or the 155 people who have oak leaves, and the next
Ashleaf?
Ashleaf. I think
Ashleaf. I'm sorry, Ashleaf.
Yeah.
My head was saying Ashleaf, my mouth was saying something else.
Yeah, I think that that is one of the things that we've talked about, specifically about the Western tradition, and that it lacks a huge middle part between like the beginning and the end. Right? We have nothing in between.
And hates giving grants of arms. Hates it.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that we have talked about in you and I, especially Leon, we've had this conversation many times, is that we do fall on the side of needs a grant level fighting arts service award. I believe Helga also feels similarly.
I have many feelings about this subject, especially as one of our newer knights.
Yeah, and it's a contentious one. There's a significant portion of the Western populace that does not feel that we need to add more awards to our already overburdened award list.
I am strongly convinced that we lose more members to inattentiveness than all the claims of rudeness, nastiness, and all that stuff. People don't know how close they are to getting the next rung on the ladder, and they give up. They just don't know how close they are. And I think we're doing our populace and our members a complete disservice by not recognizing, particularly because, and I did it in 2 years, right? I mean, I have an attention span of a gnat, but I can pay attention for 2 years, right? There are people who are doing it 8 and 9 and 10 years and have no recognition for years on their path, right? And it's wrong.
I mean, I felt the same way about the laurel, and the fact that, I got my rose leaf very early on. And then 17 years after that, I was laureled. So, and it's not that I was doing laurel level work for 17 years, but I was doing it for quite a bit longer with really kind of no intermediate stage then. And so I don't know, we have a lot of people in the age group that, like, for instance, you, Leon, Thorfinn's is another one, is a good example of when he joined at age 20. By age 24, he was a knight, like he had been knighted. So that's a problem if now it's taking, somebody coming into the society much, like double that amount of time or triple that amount of time to get to knighthood. And any peerage, really. I mean,
you wouldn't have a problem with it taking that much longer if you had stuff in the middle that
exactly,
right?
Yeah. But anyways, Araya, you got like soapbox face that you're trying to like. Sorry,
I drank my day, ma'am.
And I said soapbox, so. Would you care to share with the class?
We technically are in the guest questions right now. So.
We are, but it's pertinent. So.
I have a feeling there's a lot of external factors that are being missed in many of the statements. I will agree that we need intermediate award structures because we create a toxic environment around you shouldn't want the award. No, fuck that. We need people. We need all the spans. We will have people that don't need awards and don't ever wear their awards, all the way up to people that wear them like a Girl Scout merit badge sash.
Look like a Russian general.
That spectrum is okay, and we need to actually build a system that addresses all aspects of that. And if we do not, we will lose members and we will only hyper focus on a single group of people. And then we will emotionally abuse the other group of people into accepting that they are wrong for wanting recognition, which is not what we're actually after. Being a peer is not wanting to be a peer. It's not being attached to the outcome, which is different. You're not owed a peerage, but you can strive for a peerage and you should strive for a peerage. And that's different than feeling owed a peerage. That is where I think we have actually built a toxic culture around the progression of our students into peerages in all aspects and all levels. We hold people back because, oh, well, they want it. Yeah, I want them to want it, actually. Like, I want, apprentices to want it and proteges to want it and mod students to want it. And I want our royalty to want to be royalty. And I want our knights candidates to want to be knights. Why would we break them out of that before making them a peer? Like, that's the stupidest concept on the planet. However, when it comes to the, subject change, left turn. When it comes to the change in the bar of becoming a knight, I think that we are missing a lot of external factors that play into availability of practices, pools of knowledge that are sought. When you came up, the pool of knowledge was much easier to get into than it is right now. We do not have big practices anymore. Mission is gone. Also, when I came in, we went from having very, very huge pools of knowledge to it was getting shut down and hoarded. So unless you were in a household, you didn't gain access to that knowledge unless you were in the in crowd for that group. And so the SCA right now is learning that they need to stop that. And we're going back out to the, you must mass share knowledge to actually see success. And so I think that is actually a factor for all of our peerage candidates that's going on here, especially the belted candidates, because being the most visible. Also, one of the things that we don't take into account very often is my generation and on didn't have the disposable income to travel. We did not. So unless our local practice was a deep practice, unless we were in a place where we could literally pick up cans to pay for gas to get to practice, you can't get there. And we are still in that. We have had economic crash after economic crash after economic crash, $5 a gallon fuel. So unless you already have the into knowledge, now we economically have strangled ourselves out of that. And so that's one of those things that we actually have to look at when we're not like, oh, the bar has gone too hard up. It's like, no, how can we change and get access to the knowledge to get our candidates there? Because that's actually the big factor that I see across the entire board of the SCA, is that we haven't adapted to new culture to teach the next generation how to be where we're at. And that's actually a huge, huge thing that I don't even know where to start with, but I know that we have to. And amusingly enough, the pandemic is forced. We have a huge amount of knowledge now online forever that people can go access.
And also they can interact, and that's another thing. I think the issue is that we need to go back to the idea that we need to make everybody better, not just our guys. There's a lot of ego tied up in my guys are good and your guys aren't, and that was one of the things that made Mission College really special. It wasn't just that it was a big site, it was that the idea was that everybody there was there to teach, and everybody there, no matter what their rank, was there to learn. And it didn't matter whose squire belt you were wearing or whatever. If someone asked a question, you answered the question, or and we need to get back to that. And I think to a degree, some of these videos we're seeing, like Mark Darrendel's stuff, that democratizes the ability to learn to fight. And I think that's headed in the right direction. And I acknowledge your fact that while we've raised the bar has gone up. The mitigation factor of how many practices you can get to is a component of that is not the candidate's fault.
So I have a lot of feelings on the subject. So sorry, I was trying to be good, and then apparently my face betrayed me.
I think, you know what though, I asked you to do it, so blame me, but I think that it was valid. So yeah. So let's move on.
I have a rose leaf, right?
Yeah.
How close am I to a laurel? In the West, you don't know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
True. Yeah. All right. Let's see. The next one is yours.
It's mine. This one comes from Kate. What is your favorite story from the early days?
Well, I remember going before Fleeg and Nickerlin, who are about as mainstream old guard SCA as you can get, with the Westermark asking to be made a barony. And it was at 12th night. And Gerhard von Nordflemmen wrote this 26 line or couplet thing, starting with A, B, Z, A's to Z, your amazing acolytes, your zippy zebra loving whatever, and watching Frederick of Holland kind of like just we locked him up, and Frederick never gets locked up. That one I remember. I also remember the 12th night when Terence of Halliday was made king, and all the brouhaha surrounding his activities, and that's where I got my award of arms. There were 7 of us from the Westermark who got our award of arms at that event, and no one knew who we were, and no one understood why we were getting award of arms. And there was that's on the West Kingdom history site. So, yeah. But anyway, those are my 2 strong memories of being fringy and the early SCA.
So that actually leads really well into the next question, which is from Geneviève de Vendôme, who asks a very leading question.
Okay.
With a pretty unique perspective, having started the SCA with a boundary-pushing, controversial to some group back in the late 70s, to being a well-known, quote-unquote, respectable peer. Do you have any insights to share, especially with newer members? And I think you should explain about the Westermark and all of that, because that was a whole thing.
Well, so the Westermark is basically San Mateo County in the Bay Area, for those who aren't from the Mist. And we started it was a household, and we were all really young, and we were all really socialists, and well, some of them were socialists. And we had an internal battle. We had someone who was trying to take control of the group, and we had a treason trial and threw them out, which completely blew away the SCA infrastructure. They were like, what the hell's going on? But because the Westermark had done a favor that we probably shouldn't have done to the King of the West, the king was willing to create us a shire. In fact, I have the letter from Stone of Stonecroft saying, you're the seneschal. We had a coin toss who would be the seneschal for San Francisco and who would be the seneschal for the Westermark. And I lost the coin toss, and I became the seneschal for San Francisco, and Gerhardt became the seneschal for the Westermark, and that started the Westermark. And the Westermark was a really very cohesive group that was very fringy, that marched to a different drummer, but we sort of played the SCA game, and we were trying to play the SCA game sort of. But fortunately, like James Graham took us under his wing and helped us out a little bit. But you know, we were just there for the partying. I mean, we were all, you know, barely legal drinking age, and in fact, we would have 4 or 5 of the students who were still under 18. We would do what we called the Virgin Run. They would come all day Saturday, and then Saturday night, one of the adults or the older guys would have to drive them back to San Mateo so that, you know, they could get home in time because, you know, so their parents didn't think that they were doing nasty stuff. So.
You know, so that was the People's Republic of the Westermark. Was that what you guys?
The People's Republic of the Westermark and all that stuff actually came a little bit later.
Yeah, okay.
And actually came in my second incarnation of Leon, because I got married, and my wife did not want to play in the SCA, so I left the fringe group and left the SCA for about 1.5 years, and then I came back. And when I came back, that was the beginning of the People's Republic and my awards go jingle jangle jingle, and the battle hymn of the Republic, you know, all that stuff.
PPFUF. Yeah.
The Progressive People's Feudalist United Front, a place for every person in their place. And that was all in that era. And so when I came back, the Westermark had just gone from a shire to a barony.
And it's still a barony to this day, and it's
still a barony to this day. And in fact, it has assumed a couple of other baronies, right? So
it has. Yeah. No, that is an interesting and fun little like detour in Western history, is the whole creation of the Westermark. And so yeah, thank you for explaining it.
And also, we were like the first barony in the central, in the Mist, right? Baronies had all been up in Ontario or up in Eureka or, you know, out in Sacramento. So creating a barony in the central area was a relatively new process.
So actually that kind of made me go, because I just moved back to Sacramento. I'm from here originally. It's where I started playing in the SCA, so I moved home. But we're a province, the province of Golden Rivers. Was it ever a barony?
Yes, barony of Golden Rivers. And they had a problem with their baron and baroness a little, and as groups do. And I mean, the baron and baroness of Golden Rivers are wonderful people. Kevin and Patrice, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes, but there was a problem, and so the way they fixed the problem is they moved it from a barony to a province, and then they didn't have to worry about the infighting for the person who's going to be the next baron and baroness.
Interesting.
As I recall the story.
Okay, yeah, because I remembered that there was something about the fact that, you know, Golden Rivers was very staunchly not a barony. So
just like Southern Florida is staunchly not a barony.
It was, we are not a barony. Welcome to Golden Rivers. We are not a barony.
yeah, that's part of it.
But yeah, okay, cool. All right, that was a fun deviation. Let's get back on track. Helga, I think the next one's yours.
You're muted. I can't hear you.
Fixed it. This question is from us to you. What was that, Baby Ninja? Nobody can see Baby Ninja's face but me, or but us right now, and it was just, that had to happen. I'm sorry, folks. So this question comes from the hosts to you. How do you adapt as a herald when the royalty goes off script?
To preface this a little bit, the reason why this question came up was because my boyfriend always picks you as the Kingside's herald because you can roll with it when he decides to ad lib. So
well, okay. So one of the benefits that I have, I think that, and I think it's true for other heralds who are in the same boat, being a royal peer, and having run court, you understand that sometimes you go off script, right? And so generally speaking, when a king goes off script or a royalty goes off script, well, it's usually the king, right? Because when I'm Queenside herald, I'm telling the queen, this is coming up in like 3 or 4 lines. So she's never like in a blank space when everyone looks at her and she doesn't know what's happening, right? So it's like, this is coming up. But kings, like, you know, Jade's one of them, Thorfinn's one, Radnor's one. Sometimes they just get verbose and they like to hear their voice. And Thorfinn's not so much like to hear his voice, but he runs off script. But the one that was probably the most memorable was when we were creating a Duke and Duchess. And it was for Thorfinn's reign. And we couldn't, they were busy, they were being king and queen, right? And so we never got their ceremony until just before court, right? And they each wanted their own, the Duke wanted to come up and be a Duke, and then the Duchess wanted to come up and be a Duchess. So basically it's the ceremonies in serial, right? Well, at the last minute, the Duke decides that he wants the Duchess to bring in his ducal coronet. So we're doing the ducal ceremony and the Duchess comes in and now she's standing there with the ducal coronet and we start to get done and you can't call her into court like you're supposed to, right? She's already there. And so it's like on the fly, I'm flipping the pages back and forth. Kelly, say that. Thorfinn, say this. Thorfinn, say this. So that we could get them back, so we could, the Duke was created and then we could create the Duchess. But I was flipping, and the Heralds, the West Kingdom Heralds book has all the ceremonies in them and all permutations of the ceremonies. And the ducal ceremony is probably 20 pages long with all the permutations. So literally it's like I'm flipping here while he's reading that, I'm tabbing to try to figure out the next place I have to go. So some of it's just being familiar enough with the ceremonies and understand where you have to get to. And I know the king knows where he's going to get to. So it's just, you know, and sometimes the herald just has to fall on his sword, right? And because the herald is the frame for the royalty. The herald is never the picture. And there are heralds, court heralds, who don't do that. They think it's all about digging how clever they are, and it's not. You're the frame. So that's just kind of, I'm familiar enough with the ceremony, and I understand that sometimes you get lost, and you know you can get them back on. So hopefully that wasn't too long an answer.
I like how you're so nervous that your answers are too long, and all of us are just like, no, keep going. Like, tell us all the stories.
Well, you know, the thing is that I can get really, I know I get verbose, and I like to hear my voice. So I'm just being, I'm being unusually sensitive for Leon, and you guys probably aren't used to that.
You're being very vulnerable, and I like it. It's a nice change. Cocky Leon, who knows it all.
Who are you, and what have you done with my normal Leon?
Yeah, well, you know, the problem is someone tells a really funny story, and you know, I collect stories, and so it trips. Oh, I have a story like that too, and I want to share it, and sometimes it's just it's hoggy. So I'm trying to be better.
Well, this is all about telling stories. So you know, please feel free to go with the flow. Because actually, this next question is very much kind of in that same vein. This is from us again. What is your favorite court herald story? A time crown went off script, peerage gone awry, award shenanigated?
Well, so the one I just told was probably the most dire situation where something that was completely unexpected occurred, and it was 12th night court, right? So there was a bazillion people in the room. I mean, I've had the ones where the crown called the person, you know, called their queen by the name of a former queen. They forgot the order of what they had told me, and they called up the next they'll call up so and so, right? And it's like, that's not your next person. But you know, most of my courts are pretty, other than the ducal one, off the top of my head, my courts have been pretty, I can't think of any crazy things that have happened in court other than the name mistake, right? Or, well, I take it back. Stephen of Beckingham, when he was Prince of the Mists, came into his investiture ceremony and demanded the crowns and coronets of Sinagua, because he had just moved from Sinagua. And literally the prince and princess of Sinagua who were sitting there like, well, here you go, right? And his princess was outside, and her comment was, what does Steve do now? So.
Yeah. Oh my God. Actually, that kind of goes into another question we've got coming up. So that we'll hang on to that theme. And all right. Let's see. Next question is yours, Helga.
The next one comes from I always like
Bianca.
Yeah.
Bianca. Yeah.
It's just one of those ones I see written and my brain just panics every time. I don't know why. What is your favorite drink to have during a long court while sitting in the big chairs? Or, well, really the medium chairs, but you know.
Well, it depends. It depends on which court it is. Because if it's a 12th night court, I drink as little as possible because you cannot leave. I'm a big fan. You know, if it's a warm, if it's an informal hot court, I'll drink a beer. You know, I like champagne. I mean, but mostly it's a beer. But if it's, and believe me, I've sat through some long 12th night courts, right? And so, I mean, so I tend not to drink for those because you can't get up and leave. You're stuck because you're not the royalty.
I mean, at least unless it's an emergency, you know, yeah, you're pretty.
Yeah, well, yeah, so, but the idea is don't create the emergency.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Have you seen the size of my bladder? Okay, yeah. If I'm ever up there, I'm sorry. It's just gonna be in the middle of something.
You literally just like, you stand up, you give them the signal,
Yeah.
you leave, you go pee, you come back.
Well,
like,
so this is where you train your herald to be able to cover for you, because like I said, heralds should be really good about throwing themselves on a sword to make the royalty comfortable, because being royalty, as her grace knows, is not easy, and people it's like people going to see the movie Gone with the Wind with Rhett Butler, right? And every reign has the Rhett Butler character, but who's playing it is different, and so everyone has a different set of expectations. And so if you get really wild and crazy, people are going, oh, that wasn't such so good. And if some people nail the role, they really, really like it. That's been my experience, and it's broader, but that's kind of the idea. You're reprising a role, or it's a cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. So the next one is from Thomas. What is your favorite absurd SCA-induced injury? And the hosts would like to know. Tell us of the spoon crown, what it is, and how you've gotten it.
Yeah, bastards.
Oh, come on. You had to have known.
Well, you know, yeah, probably. Okay, so it's West Frontier War, and there was in the evening, there was a piñata of some kind that you were supposed to hit, right?
What is it
I'm sorry, how is that piñata shaped?
Oh, that's right. It was. I think it was a penis.
It was a penis piñata.
Yeah, it was a penis, right? But so they had it strung up, and then underneath it they had a grass mat,
Mm-hmm.
and so when the candy, when the prize came out of the penis, they could easily pick it up, and it wouldn't get lost in the grass or whatever. So they gave me the stick and said swing. So when I did a really great Bellatrix flat snap, great technique, your feet down so you could just slide your foot to get all that weight into it. But it was a grass mat. So my foot, instead of sliding and then stopping, slid so that I stretched my groin out big time. It was like not quite pulled muscle, but it was like tweak, right? So the next day we get up fighting, and it's like, man, my groin, I don't know if I need to really loosen it. I'm telling this to Radnor, who cannot keep his mouth shut when it's to someone else's disadvantage. So, Leon, you can't fight this morning because you stretched out your groin hitting a penis? And everybody was like, and apparently, as I hear the story later, there was someone who'd had the spoon crown for a long time, and they were looking for an excuse to pass it on. And I literally stepped in the way of that. So yeah, that's how I got my spoon crown.
I want you to kind of explain a little bit though what the spoon crown is. It's one of those like ridiculous Western traditions that has sort of taken on a life of its own.
there's one story that I know of. Well, so there's one story that I know of kind of how it got started, but it's a Thorfinn. It came from the angels and those guys. But apparently there are a bunch of guys in there drunk, and they're sitting around the campfire. And I don't know, they made the spoon crown for doing something really, really stupid. And if you do something stupid, you earn the spoon crown. And the best story, one of the best stories I heard is someone heard that the king was, who I think was was going to go use. Oh no, it was Christopher of. It was Christopher, and I can see his face. I can't think of his last name. So he's going to go off and use the restroom. So one of the guys.
Christian? You're talking about Christian?
Christian de Glaive. That's right.
Christian de Glaive. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So this guy at the fire, around the fire with all the other Christian guys, decides he's going to duct tape the king in the bathroom, and they're like, don't do it. So he goes off and he does it. He comes back, and like 15 minutes later, Christian comes walking into camp, and it's like they're all looking around, and then they hear the queen like, let me out. Let me get out. Whoever did that won the spoon crown. So a former squire of mine got the spoon crown from me at the litany of the list. Salute the crown, salute the one whose favor you bear, salute each the other, right? And I had amped him. It was his first crown tournament. I said, you want to throw the first shot. You know, you're brand new. Maybe the only shot you get to throw the first shot. So the herald goes, salute the crown, salute the one whose favor you bear, salute you each the other. And as soon as he gets salute you each the other, my squire just throws a flat snap. Bam! And it's like, there's one more instruction that you have to wait for. And the guy would go, and I don't know, what made it funny was the guy was going to walk up to give him a hug. Because, you know, salute you each the other. And so his opponent was going to give him a hug. And as soon as he came forward, he just bam, flat snapped him. He got the spoon crown. So anyway, so the spoon crown is do something really stupid or something that someone thinks is stupid, and you get the spoon crown.
It's pretty glorious.
It's kind of the stupid injury award.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Darwin Awards for the West Kingdom.
Oh my God, it is the Western Darwin Award.
Except
you don't kill yourself, and you don't necessarily take yourself out of the gene pool in the process.
Yeah, you don't die, but it's in the same vein.
Yeah.
And for everybody's knowledge, it is made out of like old school stainless steel spoons.
It's like a wreath. It looks kind of like a laurel wreath made of spoons. And it's actually really cool.
It's got like 6 spoons on it, and they're like bent, and they're welded up. There's like 3 or 4 spoons that form the headpiece, and then there's like.
So if this was Christian's reign, probably was the Sons of Iniquity. It wasn't the angels.
Probably the Sons.
Yeah, so the proto angels.
Yeah.
The group that came before was the Sons of Iniquity.
The better outcome.
Yeah. All right. That actually also random tangent there. The penis pinata night that it attacked you and you lost was also the night that I drank half a bottle of St. George absinthe. And Radnor told me I was a delightful little thing, which I will dine out on for the rest of my life. There's your Radnor story.
And you know what? He's right.
Yeah, he got down on his knees and looked me right in the eye, and he's just like, "You're just the most delightful little thing, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes, you're Grace."
You don't know how many times carrying his stuff, walking behind him, and I'm tall enough I can see over his shoulder, watching the reaction of the people out in front of him.
The man is pure charisma.
Classic. It's like
anyway,
all the people's brains leak right out of their ear.
Have you seen? I mean, that smile. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. So enough of Tulia fangirling Radnor. We're not going to derail entirely at this point, but I felt I needed to point out.
All good.
I would like to know, we're like halfway through the show and you guys just started in on it, so I'm really impressed by both of you right now.
All right.
At Radnor's show, he can get his own gig.
We thought about actually having him on the show. I feel like we might be a little too lowbrow. But
No. You'd have fun. You would have fun.
Anyways, let's move on to other questions.
Sure.
Well, actually, I was going to ask we're about an hour in. Tulia, do you need a commercial break before we turn into the general questions?
Surprisingly not, but I do think it is a good time for a commercial break anyway, because I am out of beverage.
Okay. Our lovely tech, can we go to a commercial break?
The Practical Viking strives to create well-researched, handcrafted items for all levels of reenactment. The use of linen, wool, and silk make our clothing and accessories comfortable for working, rowing, farming, and playing. We hand-finish most of our items and try to bring our customers the best in economical Viking wares. In addition to textiles, we have toys and games, household goods, and jewelry. You can find us at practicalviking.com or on Facebook at The Practical Viking. Come see us soon.
Islamic, Greek, or Italian Renaissance, skull or Viking kitties. We're devoted to creating unique pieces of historically inspired ceramic art, a touch of the unique you can use all the time. Here's one of our artists working now. Hand-thrown, hand-painted, yet safe for food, dishwasher, microwave, and oven. Reenactment, which is Gaelic for start fire in reference to the heat of the kilns, is a mother-daughter team with 6 degrees and a myriad of art awards between them, and a healthy amount of humor to bring it all together. Visit our website at reenactment.com or join us on Facebook. Thanks for watching.
Bedlam Bazaar offers tunics made for hero and goddess sizes, starting at extra large and going up to as much as 5XL. We do embroidery of every kingdom and populous device, peerages, officers, and many award patches in full edge-to-edge embroidery. What's special about edge-to-edge embroidery, you ask? There's no exposed material with minimal embroidery or fraying edges sticking out all around the edges. You get 100% full embroidery with clean edges, and we even do custom orders with anything you want on it at the lowest prices in the industry. We have done patches, reusable journal covers, tote bags, reusable grocery bags, hats, caps, beanies, and even on the sides of shoes and boots. You are only limited by your imagination and what items will fit onto a commercial embroidery machine, even if they aren't flat. Visit us today online at bedlambazaar.com or on Facebook at Bedlam Bazaar.
The Practical Viking strives.
Welcome back to Between Two Peers. Remember, go check out those merchants and support them in this time of the pandemic. They're all making some really, really cool wares. Also, right now, I'm going to take this moment in time to remind you all that likes equal doggo treats and kitten treats. We've already had one kitten on the show tonight. I know my doggo is downstairs currently, making eyes at my husband because he has chicken. But there is also many other doggos that are spoiled because of this, because anytime a show gets over 100 likes, I have to send a box of treats to Baby Ninja's doggo. So help us spoil our pets through showing us those likes. Okay, I'll resend it. I just got reminded that she's almost through the first bag of treats, so I got to send another one. We've got a system down. So with that, we're going to roll into the next set of questions where we'll all be answering them. And so be prepared for some serious and sassy coming in.
Yep.
So the first one comes from Safia. Which kingdom is best and why is it the West?
We got this very light boo in the background from Baby Ninja just now.
Well, I mean, do I get to answer that first, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. The West is a wonderful kingdom. And for the longest time, we thought we were the best damn fighters anywhere. And I think that there are other kingdoms who treat their tourney fighting more seriously than we do, and we could learn from them. And that's a hard thing because the West used to be the best by far, and we're not. I mean, everyone else. There are really lots of good fighters and lots of good royalty in other kingdoms, and the SCA should be happy and proud about that. But the West needs to step up its fighting game. That's my soapbox thing.
Well, just out of curiosity, what do you think the West could learn to do better? How could it improve in that area?
Well, I mean, and some of this is, some of it is. I'm going to walk right into this trap, right? I don't think the West treats artists as well as other kingdoms treat their artists. We just don't. We could. I mean, it's a very fighting centric kingdom, and we could do a much better job encouraging our artists and arts, and I think we're doing a better job, but we have room for improvement. There are other kingdoms where a laurel is awesome, and the West is kind of you're just another peer, right?
It is, yeah. That's a real thing. The West is, as my laurel always puts it, pretentiously non-pretentious, and and I think that that's not going as far as it once did within the kingdom and outside the kingdom as well. I think there's only so much humble bragging that I deal with. Before it's just obnoxious, and come on, get over it. And I guess Helga, you asked the question, so I guess I'm next, right? West is the best. I love the West Kingdom. Pew pew. But I also Baby Ninja food again. But I've never lived anywhere else, so that doesn't really necessarily mean that the West is across the board the best. Like Leon, I have seen, with the benefit of the internet, been exposed to other kingdoms, customs, and I think there is absolutely a lot of stuff out there that we can take home and learn and improve our kingdom. Just because the West didn't dream it up in 1966, May 1st of 1966, doesn't mean that it's not a worthwhile or valuable thing, to incorporate into our own culture. Some light bulbs need to get changed eventually. It's the way things. That's how the community and the culture and the kingdom continues to flourish. So yeah, it's kind of a weird offhand way of I'm not trying to diss the West, but I am trying to say that for all of its many wonderful things, it's hard to necessarily feel like we are the best, because now I've seen the way other kingdoms do certain things and thought to myself, hey, that would make things a lot easier here in the West Kingdom if we could just, incorporate some of this stuff. We're not right. We're not the only way to play this game. And I think we can make room for more new ideas, as terrifying as that is. Helga?
I like how this was supposed to be a slightly sassy question.
I know, it really didn't.
Super serious one where we're just like,
did not end up this way at all, did it?
Well,
kingdom xenophobia is not okay. All of us just did that. Well, I'm about to. I'm actually gonna say which kingdom is best. None of them.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the West the best? Well, I'm gonna say because all my, a ton of my friends are here, and it got me into the SCA.
That's where I keep
so there's always going to be some fangirl loyalty to the West Kingdom, because this is where I started. You always have love for the kingdom that gave birth to your SCA career. You always will. And it's where you pick up some of your SCA mannerisms. It's where you start learning about our cultures. And all the kingdoms have different cultures, which is super cool. It's really, really cool. And one of the things that I love about the West, actually, that is different in other kingdoms, is we do have the pretentiously unpretentious, but we really actually do have those moments in time where no title matters. It shouldn't ever be forced, and it shouldn't be manufactured, how it is sometimes when we're oh, we're pretentiously unpretentious, but I'm still I need you to recognize my title. But there is how it is around the campfires, how it is after dark, everything else like that. It's the titles fall away. And we go back to this rabble-rousing group that just absolutely adores what we do. And I've experienced very similar things in other kingdoms, but the flavor of that in the West Kingdom makes me adore it. It reminds me when I'm traveling to take that idea with me, and to never, get too high up on my high horse about anything that I've done within the SCA, because there are others that have also been there, but also I should never exclude those that have not. And the West Kingdom taught me that. And so that's one of the things that I will say that while it is in other kingdoms, the West is what brought that to me. And I'm going to highlight that as it's one of the very cool aspects of the West Kingdom.
Well, and so I do have a snarky comment that Tulia will appreciate. I will have to say that the West Kingdom has not been served well by foreign royalty sitting on its thrones, where opportunities that could have happened, where ideas from other kingdoms could have been brought in, the person or the person in question totally blew the opportunity. And so a lot of times the West is just anti-changing the light bulb, because some of the people who are offering new light bulbs don't know what the hell they're doing. So anyway, that's my snarky comment.
I'm not sure you can see my eyebrows since I reigned with a foreign prince.
No, well, so, and I will say this. Wait.
I had to do that, Leon, because you were just
No. Your prince did a great job. Your prince really tried to be as Western as he could. And, he fought his list with a pole weapon, which is pretty unusual for the West anyway. So your prince did a really good job. We lost, well, it's just you and me, Araya, for a while.
It's just you and me. We're just rocking it with baby ninja.
So, well, it's still two peers. It's still two peers.
Oh, no, she just got let her in.
So, no, but that was a principality reign, right? Mm-hmm. And so but your prince did a really, really good job. I was really impressed with your prince. But we've had people sitting on the thrones as opposed to the coronets, who had an opportunity to do some cool stuff. They were well traveled and completely muffed the opportunity. So,
yeah.
Thanks for allowing me to save myself there.
You're totally welcome, because I was totally about to be like, are we going to throw hands over this? Because we might throw hands.
No. But like I said, I mean, yeah, coronets are a little different because coronets are thought to be test tubes and things like that. You can do, six-fold lists and stuff like that and not get, well, no, you can't. But you can do experimental stuff and have a little bit more opportunity to try stuff without getting everyone ticked off, right?
One of the reasons why I love the principalities.
And both the two. Okay, so I don't know. Awortha is really a cool. Has got a cool gig. I mean, I like their thing, but I've only been up to Awortha once. But I will tell you, between Sinagua and the Mists, those are two very, very different principalities. And you don't know where the border is, but you can tell someone who's a Sinaguan and someone who's not.
I don't think so. Not so much anymore.
Oh, well, let's put it this way. If you ask the right question, or you ask the right question, you'll find out really, really quickly. It usually is regarding their prince and princess.
There is a little bit of difference in how they treat the prince and princess, but I think that giant division has faded over the years. Whoop, we lost her again.
Well, I think to a degree that is true, because there are people who have, like Thorfinn has reigned in both, right? I mean, there are people who reign in both, and they back and forth, and so and there are people who live in the Mist who've reigned with Sinaguan consorts and vice versa. So I think it's a lot less different. But
I think we also saw a large change with the financial crash in 2000 and 2007. Because fundamentally where our migration patterns went, like human migration patterns changed within the Bay Area and within the Central Valley. And we saw a lot more cross culture with people moving to where they could afford to live.
Sure.
And moving to where the jobs were. And so I think that actually within the 2007 to 2009 period, we saw a large shift in the cross-pollination between the two principalities. And we're actually now seeing a lot of the melding. There are still some differences, but overall, like there's not a lot of difference. Like coming from being a hardcore Sinaguan, like little small town redneck girl, you want to define a Sinaguan?
Yeah.
But that has changed rapidly. And like I never really got the feeling that there is that old like bad blood that everybody talks about. I'm like, maybe if we stop talking about it, it won't exist, because I don't understand it and I've been here for a long time. Like,
it's not bad blood. It's kind of Sinaguan way. Sorry.
No, okay. Number one, I need to upgrade my internet in the new house. Number two, I love how you just all carried on like I didn't even happen.
Oh no, we totally were like, oh shit, she's gone again. Oh, keep going.
Yeah, and I come back in, it's the same conversation. And number three, we actually have a topic that's coming up that kind of will, I think, touch on some of the two principalities. Kind of as the
actually.
So
I did want to make a shout out to Awortha, because I know Awortha gets forgotten and they shouldn't. They're a valuable part of the West.
The Awortha has the benefit of not being right next door neighbors. They're not twin siblings the way Sinagua and the Mists are, and so there's that. A lot of it is very close in geography, very close in age, very different in culture.
Hang on a second. The Mists is first, Sinagua is second. Get it? We're not
a hot second later. Like literally, it's twins. They were separated by 5 minutes of creation. Well, like 3 months actually. I think it's
and the Mists did it intentionally.
Yeah, I know. See, it goes back. And this is how we're going to get into this. In a little bit.
I literally just felt my eyebrows start twitching. Like it literally, that whole just like showed up right in that eyebrow. Like I realized that there's a lot of makeup in this eyebrow. Maybe that's causing it, but like still, that eyebrow just had its life of its own.
Well, and here's the thing though. All three of us were originally from Sinagua. All three of us moved to the Mists. I'm just moved back to Sinagua. So I mean, there's a bit of that. We understand the dynamic from both sides.
I grew up in Sacramento.
Yeah. So,
but I've always played in the SA only in the Mists, so I never
Yeah.
got the Sinaguan play vibe. But
yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the question though, so we can get to that particular topic and we can have a whole soapbox about it. All right, so the next question is from us, the hosts. What is a Western tradition you see in other kingdoms and know the history of it? Not roses, because that's what every Westie always says is roses. So.
Well, a new one is the Knight Banneret.
Oh, that's a good one.
The Kingdom of Trimaris had created their first Knight Banneret. And I really, really like the award Knight Banneret because it was my idea. And true story. So we're sitting around drinking Henry Weinhardt's, and my knight was Crown Prince, and he wanted to do something for the Griffins. The Griffins, the Griffin Guard was the premier war unit in the West at the time. But the head of Griffins was already a knight. He was already a Viscount. You know, what could we do? And I said, well, you know, he's got knights and he's got other knights fighting with him. You know, in the 100 Years' War, they were Knight Bannerets. They were knights who had knights fighting for them, and you know, you could create Knight Banneret. And son of a gun, at the next as is stepping up, he created Knight Bannerets, and Brandon Darendale was the first Knight Banneret. But that was my idea. He stole. But I think that's a very, very. I mean, I got one. Jade gave me one. I am not a war fighter per se, but I was at Penzic and I was plugging away, and Jade decided I deserved to be a Knight Banneret, and that is probably the one award. Well, no, that's an award that I have to keep earning. And that's the one where I have imposter syndrome, is the Knight Banneret. That's the one where I don't feel. But anyway, that's the Western award that I think has gone out to the rest of the known world, and it's a really cool award.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was in your last reign, Helga. It was Trimaris and the East.
Yeah, Trimaris, the East.
There's a treaty.
Right? Yeah, there was a whole treaty.
And there's 4 or 5 kingdoms in it.
Yeah.
I can go find the scroll. Good God, the scrolls are amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do as queen, is sign that. That treaty.
So do I get points because I didn't say roses?
Yes, you got points.
We excluded that.
Yeah. No, you got points for it. So.
So a tradition outside the kingdoms that I know is a West Kingdom tradition is dropping your arm with when you gain that advantage point with an opponent fighting. And knowing the history on that is even better. Because the history on it is not some chivalric, like, up into the stars, this is an amazing moment of chivalry. It's literally the other opponent's arm got tired, so he matched his opponent. And what ended up happening is the gallery loved it. Those watching were like, yes, this is chivalric, this is a thing. So literally we have that tradition through gallery-based pressure, because those watching felt that it was chivalric. And so that tradition started and has spread.
So never underestimate the power of the gallery, the populace. So
I like how Leon's like, nope, you got your history wrong.
Okay, so when I started fighting in 1982, it was the reason why is armor sucked, right? So the idea was that you didn't want to target your opponent's arm because you didn't want to hurt them. And so the self-punishment was that is if you accidentally hit their arm, you basically switched, right? Or dropped your shield and fought them single sword, because that was to tell them sort of, I really wasn't targeting your arm.
So there's 2 different versions of history there. Because that's
and there might have been a gallery thing, but
this was like way early in the beginning, and I have the names written down because I wrote it down somewhere because I got to hear the story, and I was like, oh, this is a cool chunk of history. Maybe I should bother Hirsch about that one and be like, okay, where in all the history that we have stored up is this tradition started from? Because that actually kind of defined a moment for me as a fighter, is that our honor is not our own. The actions that we do feed or take away from our honor, but our honor is something that is gifted to us by those watching the fights. And so literally chivalry is determined by the outside perspective of who and what you are in the deeds you do. And so that story defined it for me in that moment of like, you can be as chivalric as you want, but if the crowd does not perceive you as chivalric, you're not.
Well,
and so that is a thing where they determined it was chivalric to do this. And so thus it became tradition, because in the end, the gallery actually rules. They decide what actions of ours are chivalric versus anything else. We could do a million things and they could just decide randomly, like, well, that's a chivalric action and that is not. And if there is a group consensus about that, us as fighters, zero power to deal with that. Zero. Like, and I wish more of the SCA understood that, because if like the gallery basically is like, hey, you're a rhino hiding fuck, believe me, that fighter all of a sudden is just like,
well, I'm not a big fan of the Hail Chivalry school, but I will tell you that when I first came up, when I was first fighting, right, what the word fame was the reason why you dropped your shield and fought single sword was because you were not intending to target the arm. You were targeting the head and they got their arm in the way, or you targeted the head and you screwed up, and because of your bad form, because the armor sucked. I mean, my knight had his arm broken fighting Florentine and was out for 6 weeks, fighting Paul of Bellatrix, and got his arm broken. And there were a lot of.
Did you guys not figure out van braces in the early days?
But van braces. So I mean, okay, keep in mind that we were just in the one size fits none legs. We were just coming out of everybody starting out in carpet, right? And so the technology was there weren't enough really good armorers to build van braces that didn't weigh 50 tons or didn't protect, right? And that ultimately guys like Norham, Stephen of Norham, and those guys built up the idea of better van braces and better arm protection. And the kickback was then people started using their arm to block their head, practicing single sword, knowing that if the guy took their arm, they would fight single sword, and they were using their arm to block, as opposed to I'm swinging for your head and I screwed up and hit your arm. I'm swinging for your head and you made the decision. I'm going to block that with my arm because I can't block it with my shield. And that's where we got I'm not dropping my shield anymore. That was the ultimate evolution. But when I was first fighting, you dropped your shield because you didn't mean to target the arm.
I mean, I still drop my shield.
Well, so I do sometimes, but it depends. If I think the guy made a really good decision to save his life by blocking with his arm, I'm good with that. He should practice fighting against someone sword and board. Usually I will drop my shield because my knight beat that into me, but I'm fighting back. But I have told other fighters though who have taken my arm accidentally, who are not knights, and they want to drop their shield. It's like, no. You don't have to do. You can if you want, but don't feel obligated. Don't do that. So I mean, it's just depends on the fight and the opponent. But the reason why I always dropped mine was because I didn't mean to target the arm.
Miss Sassy, since we've taken up so much airspace.
I was just going to be the asshole that's like, my favorite thing that spread from the West is the SCA.
Well, there's a lot of fighting stuff that did come from the West. So
what's that?
There's a lot of fighting stuff that came from the West.
Yes. The entire
talking
SCA.
about the initial SCA.
Yeah.
The entire SCA came from the West.
But even going off until Penzic became the go-to event. I mean, in the West was stupid not to jump into the Penzic game. Mm-hmm. It cost us a whole bunch of influence, and we're late to that game, and that's too bad.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be my sassy answer.
I accept that level of sassy.
Okay, because yeah, I'm like, well, geez, I have a hard time finding an answer to this that isn't like roses. All right, so the next question, Helga, is yours.
The next question comes from Edmund. What is your favorite story of a friendly rivalry between the principalities of the Sinagua and Mists? Of the Sinagua? Geez, I'm terrible at that. Of Sinagua and the Mists.
Well, I think that there was a whole Christian de Glaive was Prince of Sinagua in my second reign. I think it was the second reign, and we were at like it must have been October Crown, and Sinagua Mist was coming up afterwards, and we're having court, and Christian is just trying to needle me on trying to build up the war, and I'm completely ignoring him, which is completely making him, because he's a duke as well as a prince, right? So he does not like being ignored, and he did this whole shtick for like 10 minutes, right? And kept getting more and more over, and then he and I can't remember what I said, but he went too far. He went way out, and I just turned and I said something, and it just like zap, and everybody in the crowd stopped for a second, rolled around laughing, and Christian shut up for the rest of the court. And then we went out and had a really good time. Although that does remind me of the first time I was prince. The first time I was prince, now this comes back. The Miss Sinagua War was in Sinagua, and it was like in East Sinagua. I mean, it was in the foothills, right? And so, I'm the first time prince. I bring like 25 guys, right? And I can't remember who the Prince of Sinagua was, but there was like 50 guys, right? So at the beginning of the first, it's like, so we go over, so do you want to, pair, you want to make the sides a little more even? And the Prince of Sinagua looked at me and said, no, Leon, we're just going to kick your ass all day today. And it's like, oh, really? Right? And
Those are fighting words.
And there was only like 4 or 5 nights or whatever, right? So in the first battle, Sinagua is, they got their 50 guys spread out probably over 50 to 75 yards, right? And I got all our guys and I said, okay, there's like 25 of us. We're just going to charge at the prince. Our goal is kill the prince. We're going to die. And so, he's got this smarmy look on his face and the lay on, and all 25 of the Misties go across the field right at the prince. And literally, we did not kill him, but we killed like 40 Sinaguans, all trying to defend their prince. It was him and 8 other guys. And, but we spent the whole day just getting our ass kicked because, that was the old Sinagua, and they wanted to rub the big brother's nose in the fact that only 25 guys showed up. So that was my Miss Sinagua story.
Miss Sassy?
So I think I was Bard of Sinagua during that principality reign that you were.
89?
Maybe it wasn't. It might not have been. Was Susan a princess with Christian?
No, not the Christian. No.
It was Isabeau, because that would have been my. Yeah. I didn't realize you were prince then. No shit. Yeah, because actually Christian specifically told me to write some very sassy poetry songs or something for that particular Sinagua.
I ignored him. I ignored him the whole court.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad you ignored me. I feel very seen now. But yeah,
Sinaguans are way over there. We sit to the right of the crown. Sinaguans are way over there on the left, right?
Whatever. You people and your misty attitudes. See how quickly it reverts back to the sassy Sinaguan.
I have a great love for Sinagua. I every time I've been prince and I've been in Sinagua, except that one war, I really enjoyed Sinagua. I think Sinagua's great.
Yeah, what's funny is that, well, I always joke that you can take the girl out of Sinagua, but you can't take Sinagua out of the girl. What?
Phrasing?
No. And the other part of that is, of course, the misplaced Sinagwin, the tradition of the misplaced Sinagwin, who moves west for job opportunities in tech, especially. So yeah, so it's kind of this own little journey between the two principalities, and it's I think that there's a lot of love there, and I think that it's not easily understood culturally. Just how the two principalities show love for one another. But I have a very similar relationship with my sister. So I'm also kind of approaching it from this idea of, sometimes your love languages just don't mesh. It doesn't mean you don't love them. So.
And Misty Cleon is, just not the most romantic of languages. So.
No. Helga?
I'm actually going to go with a new, a newer one is Punderdome. So they did it at a Miscellaneous War, and you want to talk about hilarious laughs. Like, there is no holds barred, punning at each other. It was just friendly competition and like all the rivalry that you want with none of the toxicity around it. And like, we just were laughing so hard at each other and just enjoying the heck out of it, and then like heckling each other about it. It was just, it was that like bonding moment between principalities versus something that takes away. And I absolutely adore it. And I adore everybody that runs those, because stuff like that is what makes the whole kingdom better while still maintaining a rivalry.
Yeah, and some of my best war stories are Miscellaneous war stories.
Oh yeah, Miscellaneous War has always been just a blast. It's a riot of a time.
I mean, I got to banish Thorfinn at a well, actually that was a wargy, so that wasn't a Miscellaneous war.
It's kind of the same thing though. Yeah.
Yes, Punderdome got awkward.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Maybe Ninja needs to come out for one of those, and we're just going to turn him loose.
Yeah. All right, so the next question is from Asa. If you could recreate one event from history, what would it be and why? Because you have quite the love of history.
I do. I mean, I would love to listen to Henry V's speech at Agincourt. I think that would be awesome, because I'm sure it wasn't Shakespearean. But I'm sure everyone thought they were just going to die that day. But that would be one that would be really, really, I think would be really cool. I would yeah, that's probably my best answer off the top of my head. If something comes in the next 5 minutes, I'll pop up.
I'm gonna say pick whatever Viking saga about like trudging across Europe, just conquering everything. I just don't want to end up being the dead dude in the well.
Yeah.
But like, understanding now that a lot of those sagas are actually like written history is really cool. And so I would like to actually like take part in one of those sagas and just like do the whole thing, because that would be really freaking cool. Again, as long as I'm not the dead dude in the well. Like, would like to avoid that.
I mean, wait, what's yours?
So honestly, I would. It's not a specific event. I would like to be in the room when Queen Elizabeth I was getting dressed, so I could see every single fucking layer as it was going on her body. I want to be in the room when Eleonora de Toledo was being dressed, so I can see every fucking layer on her body. I want to be in the room when, whoever is fabulously dressed is getting dressed, so I can know every fucking layer.
Yeah.
But so I mean, it'd be cool to do like these big grand feasts or wars, to like have a visual of Agincourt would be amazing, or the Battle of Hastings, like that stuff would be really kind of, as long as I didn't have to like actually fight. If I could just get like a drone's eye view.
Yes. Climb a tree.
What is that? It is an angel.
Yes, I would hover above, and that would be me. The what is it? The little angel fingers. Actually, for me, I would love to see how people got dressed and look at the clothes and see the construction from the inside out while it's still fresh and hasn't been rotting in a grave for 1,000 years.
Right.
That would be cool. So, yeah. Guys, actually, we are ready, kind of running out of our chosen questions. So if you want to ask Leon specific questions, fire away in the chat. And we'll put him to it.
Give me your best shot.
Oh, that's dangerous asking this crowd.
Fine.
We're gonna take that.
Bring it.
So the first one comes from Leotolf. What were those shoes outside your tent?
Oh, that's a great story. So I'm a squire. We're up in Antir, and my knight at the time was single, and he had arranged a tryst with someone from up in Washington to come down to it was a West End Tier war. It was a war anyway, and it was up in Antir. So so in the morning, so it's at a ballpark. It's at a public park, but there's a baseball diamond, and all the tents were set up like behind the bleachers in an L shape, and the Antir Royal was out in center field, and they had so they were gonna have this big court or whatever. So Saturday, we get there Friday night. Saturday morning, some Antirian courtier comes to comes to my knight's tent and says, Your Grace, and he's not there. And I said, he's not here. Can I help you? And the courtier was a woman, said, yeah, His Majesty has invited His Grace to come to breakfast. And I said, well, give me a couple minutes. I'll track him down and ask him. She said, okay, thank you very much. Right. So I throw my tunic on. I come out of the tent, and it's kind of foggy, and it's early morning. No coffee, right? And I have no idea where Radnor is, but I have no idea where His Grace is. So I'm wandering around through the tents, right? And everyone's kind of getting up. I'm wandering through the tents, and I realize that people are watching me, right? And I look out to center field, and all the Antir court is watching where I'm going, because Radnor, they've just been told that what's his name is not in his tent, he's somewhere else. So I'm wandering through the tent, and I come to a mushroom tent, and the mushroom tent, sticking out of the mushroom tent are the bottom of my knight's feet, about this much of his feet, his toes and the soles of his feet. And I stopped there and I looked around and I said, Your Grace. And he goes, yeah, Leon? I said, His Antirian Majesty has invited you for breakfast. Do you want to come? And he goes, yeah, tell him okay. I said, okay, but wait 5 minutes before you get out. He goes, okay. So I go wandering and I get about 10 feet away, and I hear this voice, thank you, Leon. And I keep walking through this thing, right? And then, and they're all following me. And then Dan, His Grace, had gone over to the tent and got, and suddenly pops out and he's all dressed. And they're all looking at me, and then they look at Rat, and they're like, oh. So 10 years later, we're at a party, and I'm telling this story, and my knight is standing there, and he goes, oh, I wondered why you asked me to wait for 5 minutes before I got out of the tent. And I said, yes, I've been covering for your ass for many, many years. So that's his clothes ended up being out there, but I recognized him. His boots were there, but I recognized his feet. Thank you, Leotolf.
The ultimate wingman for these many years.
Ultimate wingman.
Right?
Literally getting called from, where is he? I actually don't know where he is. He's with somebody else, but yeah. That was a long time ago, before he was married. He's happily married now.
Mm-hmm. Miss Sassy?
Wait, what was the question? Let's see. Oh, the shoes outside. Oh, wait, no, I get it. We're doing the other questions. Right. I'm slow today. Okay, this is from Juana Isabella de Montoya y Ramirez.
Rude.
Ask him about the buttonholes in making that first tunic.
So I worked at a Montgomery Ward selling vacuum cleaners and sewing machines. And so I'm literally working on my first tunic, and I've never sewed, right? I mean, it's literally a T tunic, and I'm trying to do buttonholes, right? And I can demonstrate buttonholes to a lady by the sewing machine. Here's what a buttonhole looks like. But trying to do them on my own garb was no laurel for sewing for me.
Buttonholes are hard.
Buttonholes are the devil.
Yeah, they're not like eyelets, which is just a whip stitch, and I have a kitten now attacking paper. But buttonholes take a lot of practice.
I'm surprised Groon didn't ask me to ask you how we met her, but that's another story.
Would you like to tell that story? Because Juana Isabella de Montoya y Ramirez used to be Groon.
So Juana Isabella, her grace, was the queen when I knighted me. But she was Groon. And she came with 4 of her friends to an SCA event, and apparently, and they were like all from high school. They all lived up in Piedmont, and her friends, one of the friends had smoked some marijuana, got the munchies, and on Friday night they had gotten dropped off at the event, and they were going to spend the whole weekend. Parents were going to come back on Sunday and pick them up. The guy got the munchies and ate all their food Friday night. So Saturday morning, no food, right? And so the Westermark had this reputation of the Virgins Run, right? So here are these 4 high school students who didn't have any food. Someone brought them over to the Westermark, introduced them to us. We fed them for the rest of the weekend, and Juana's an original Westermarker, and there's like 4 of us still playing. Well, there's 3 out of the 4 that are peers or royal peers. Genevieve, Juana, Groon, and myself, who were all fringies, who ultimately, got mainstreamed. So, but that's how I met Juana.
So I'm just going to put this out there, since Katrina is being amazing and running the outline behind the scenes, and she'll hear this. Katrina, if something comes in that you want to jump line, you have those ultimate powers. You can just organize those questions how you would like us to answer them. So the next one comes from Soren. Why do you always call us the dancing Aworthans on field?
Well, so, okay, keep in mind, my first exposure to the Aworthans was Keelson's Skyfire, and of blessed memory. And Keelson framed a whole bunch of my learning about Awortha and all of that. And the Aworthans sing and they dance and they are extremely cool. And Keelson, bless his heart, could say the most gross things and absolutely get away with it. It was completely amazing. A man who could use the C word and the women would laugh and not lynch him. It was an amazing talent. There are times when both my knight and I would look at each other and go, wow. The thing that was most pleasing to me was he didn't really like his Grace's Duchess, his first Duchess. Who was a wonderful woman, but was very much into the dig me part of the SCA game, and so he would just make her blush, and none of the squires could do that, right? We all had to be really nice to her, but he could just take her over the coals, and we would all be like, "Ooh, yeah!" So anyway.
Nice. Sassy, do you want to grab that question you liked?
I do. I'm not going to, but I don't want to throw off Katrina's fabulous organizational situation here. We'll just go the next, once we get through the order, we'll throw that one in. Okay, so we are on 4th. All right, so this is from Fleta. I'm so I think now pronounces her name Fleetish. And unlearning old pronunciations is hard, so forgive me.
That's a very interesting pronunciation. It's probably good sober, but I'm sure it's not so much when you're not. But
you're always learning new things, especially with non-Anglo names and their pronunciations. And so sometimes pronunciation gets updated. And
Sure.
So anyways, I was going to ask her, where did it go? Oh, it got moved up. Okay. Please, Uncle Leon, tell us a story about Fizzball.
About what?
Fizzball. Fizzball.
That brain cell has apparently been either died or bludgeoned. We'll have to skip that one until maybe it comes back. I don't know.
All right, well then I'll ask you the next one. This one comes from Crystal, and it just disappeared on me. It's reappearing.
She's moving it up.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation in modern life where you were either rescued by an SCA member or by some SCA knowledge? Please tell us about it.
I mean, the idea that we have a complete camping set in the garage, right? I mean, just absolutely, has on a number of occasions has saved me or members of my household or whatever. So I mean, there's just the open brazier. We want to do some. Oh, we got that. It's out on the SCA gear, right? And so I haven't really been ever rescued by an SCA member that I can recall. I have bailed some SCA members out. A squire brother called me on the phone and said his car had burned down. He was out in the valley. Could I come pick him up? And you went out and picked him up because that's what you do in the SCA. But mostly it's just around the skills that you learn. Paint. I mean, I'm much more comfortable painting things. I know. Araya, you do beautiful shields, and you are actually inspiring me to do a really cool shield of my arms. But those type of skills that you learn in the SCA that you would never think of, making rawhide shield edges and all these things that are SCA things that we just take for granted have actually just become more ingrained. I don't even think of them as SCA skills. They're just regular skills.
So we just got the definition of fizzball, which is playing baseball with cheap canned beer. Do you have a story about that?
Yeah, well, it's a really, we did that once. And like the first ball that was hit was like just dead on, and and everybody got sprayed. And when you get sprayed with beer is sticky and wet, right? And it just degenerated from there. There's more of a funny story in there. There were some things that happened, but I haven't told that story for such a long time. I'd have to think about it for a while longer. But yeah, the fizzball with the beer cans, that was another Kielsen special.
I don't know. We played it at Pennsic too, so.
Yeah, probably. But anyway, probably was. I bet you it was Budweiser too.
Oh, yeah.
The worst beer.
Well,
you have to do it with real cheap beer.
I grew up on Budweiser. Budweiser was the Westermark soda pop, man. So.
Because it's not beer.
Yeah, but it was what you could buy. We couldn't buy craft beer in 1978.
Which is a thing.
Such thing as craft beer yet in 1978?
Nope.
It was barely legal to have the brew pub, though. That law was passed in 78. So.
Yeah, one of the very first craft breweries was good old Sonogwin, Sierra Nevada. Yeah. And that was early 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe very late 70s.
Well, so I mean, the craft beer that we were drinking when in my second incarnation when I was a squire was Henry Weinhardt's.
Yeah.
And the when we decided that Henry Weinhardt's was the beer in the winter His Grace, my knight, Keelson, and my squire brother and myself, we lived in an apartment for the winter. Keelson came down because he wasn't working. And we literally drank a 12-pack of Henry Weinhardt's a piece each day. And we would take the bottle caps out and crush them into tacos. And Radnor, his Grace had a cauldron that he won at an Eagles tournament. And we would throw you would pop the bottle cap off. It was in your forearm, and then you'd pop it in your left hand. And then we were strong enough, you could squish the top, you could taco the bottle cap, and then we would throw it in the cauldron. And then we would drink the beer. And I was a brand new fighter, and I was sitting in the R&D lab with my knight talking to Keelson about advanced fighting techniques while they were shit-faced drunk. And you don't think, I mean, there was stuff I couldn't do, but 6 months or 8 months later, it was like, oh, I get it now. I mean, that winter there was 4 months of just every day was in the R&D fighting lab. It was awesome.
All right, next question. Was that me or you, Helga? I forgot, I've lost track.
I just lost track too.
Okay, so I'll just do it. This one's from Morgan. Tell us about PPFUF. Sing us the song. PPFUF forever, or something like that. Yeah.
God, I got the folio here somewhere. The song's got, but so the Westermark had a Westermark Southern Shore War, and they did the PPFUF was the socialist guys got together and did the Progressive People's Feudalist United Front. And then we had groups in Southern Shores that were guerrilla, fighting for our side, but they were actually Southern Shores people. And Gerhardt wrote the song to the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I mean, it's, we charge against the machine guns with the lance and with the bow, though they kill 1,000,000 of us, still our righteous numbers grow. Soon they will run out of bullets, and we'll let the burghers know feudalism makes us strong. PPFUF forever. PPFUF forever. PPFUF forever. Feudalism makes us strong. And so there's like 20 verses of that, and of course we would sing it, we would sit around the fireside and sing that. So yeah, that's the PPFUF song.
And that's how you end up playing the SCA your own way.
yeah. Well, and my awards go jingle jangle jingle. It's exactly another, the fringe flipping their finger at the at mainstream.
I mean,
yeah, but you guys all became mainstream.
I have a recording of I'm a Duke and You're Not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Baby Ninja. There is a song
Baby
for that.
Ninja was just like, what? What is this? Oh yeah. There's a song called I'm a Duke and You're Not, and it is 100% making fun of somebody that used that line.
I'm my awards go jingle jangle jingle, as I go strutting pompously along,
Yeah, and so Baby Ninja, just so you know, this was done by a bard that at one point when somebody was going to contest a crown at coronation, stood up and looked at the dude and was like, do it and I'll make you famous. Like, he is really known for doing the 2 fingers in the air bardic songs.
So I'm chat can hear me now. When a bard says, I will make you famous, run away.
Yeah, it is a threat
Run away.
And a promise.
That is not a good thing.
Yeah.
That's
surrender.
That's literally like when somebody from a hillbilly town or a redneck town goes, hold my beer. You don't want to be there. Bad things are about to happen.
Yeah. No, pretty much. That person sat down. So,
all right.
With that, we're going to go to the final question for the evening. Leon, this one is specifically for you. This one comes from Eric. What SCA story that you know is true, but others know is legend? Tell us.
That I know is true, but the SCA thinks is legend. Well, the problem is I'm not up on my SCA legends.
So we are. It's okay. We'll fact check you while it goes.
Well, okay. So I'm okay. I'm gonna change names because I don't want to out anyone.
No, go ahead.
No. So I'm Lord Leon, and I'm on the court of a duke, a king. He's king, and there is the Queen of Kaid, who thinks she knows all about the famous Western king. And we get into talking about the 3 great lies, right? The check's in the mail. I did it yesterday, and I won't finish in your mouth, right? And that conversation was occurring, right?
Oh, no, it's not. That's not phrasing.
Not
That's
even phrasing.
intentional.
That's just actually like that. I won't finish in your mouth. Total fucking lie. Any dude ever tells you that,
every
they're
time.
fucking lying.
Well, anyway, and so so there's a little bit of chuckling, and I said, well, you know, the 4th great lie, and the Queen of Kaid says, no, what's the 4th great lie? And I said, the 4th great lie is I won't barf on your pillow. And the Queen cracks up, and everybody cracks up, right? Ha ha ha. And the Queen turns to the King and says, well, you know, because it tastes so bad. And the King, not missing a beat, says, yes, I know.
Ugh.
And the Queen goes, what? And the image of the Western king changed in a very loud, gear-wrenching, brain-torquing. What I meant was it tastes. He wasn't looking at her. He was watching the field. Yes, I know. and watching this poor Queen of. Now, I can't laugh because I'm a courtier. I'm just Lord Leon, right? Hard moment. But that was one of those ones where the legend with what you think and what really goes on is very, very different.
I like how like you told a legend of a legend occurring, or the legend of a legend being wrecked.
It's a twist because you know, let's put it this way. I've stood behind legends, right? I mean, heroes of the West, and seen stuff happen. But a lot of people know that it really did happen. But you know, it gets inflated in the discussion. There's the one where someone claimed that they were with my knight at some event, and that they had glorious fun all night, right? And was very specific about the event. And I realized that he was actually with me 300 miles away at a different event. And so the only way that could happen was that he had to be at least 300 miles hung in order for that to happen. And that's our joke is when the story gets someone's made up and it's not true, it's like, that's just 300 miles, right? That's our in joke. So yeah. I
have a very similar in joke with Havek where it's like, yeah, you're talkative. Because I had somebody say, oh, I know who your knight is. He's really talkative. I was like,
like,
I can guarantee you do not know my knight.
I think he said maybe all of a dozen words to me in the 20 odd years I've known him.
Well, I will tell you, Rebecca's got the best burn on me, and I really wasn't expecting it, but that's another story.
Oh wait, no, you just mentioned it. Let's go.
So I was commenting on something that Havek did, and I was right, and Havek didn't like it, but he turned to me and said, "Leon, you're not a good enough fighter to correct me."
Oh,
yeah, it's like, what can you say, right?
Kitty.
Yeah.
Ow! Never mind. I shouldn't have asked. Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, the good news was that the only person there who heard it was Leotolf, right? So it wasn't like he made me look bad in front of 90 million people, but it was like, okay, good shot, yeah, because there is no answer for that, right?
Ouch! I'm just.
But the truth is that actually I am a good enough fighter to tell him what I told him, but that's not the best comeback.
Man.
That doesn't win
all
the argument.
Fighter one-liners, like all the fighter one-liners.
Yeah.
All right. So with that note, Jesus, shouldn't have asked.
Oh,
I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the show.
At a high note.
Leon, do you have any shout-outs you wish to do?
I just want to. By the way, I think what you guys are doing is really, really, really good, and I don't think you need advertising. I mean, I've been starting to watch some of the SCA content. I'm impressed with what Mark Darendell is doing. I think while some of the stuff he's doing, I don't do great sword, but some of his basic fundamental principles are really, really solid, and that's something that people should be watching. So that's one thing that comes right to the top of my head. So that's my one shout out. I mean, I haven't been playing in Ask the Knights or all that stuff because that's a different forum. But what Mark's doing is really, really good.
Miss Sassy, your shout out for the evening?
Let's see. I had something a minute ago, and I mean, that burn from Havak just like wiped everything out of my brain. It's so scorching. It literally scorched my own brain. I will like to say though, Helga and I are going to be taking a break. I didn't see it mentioned in the show notes, but we talked about this. So we're going to be taking a break after our 52nd show. We have number 51 coming up next week, and 52 is our first guest. We're going to treat her the royal way that we should have treated her originally, but we were too new to know what we were doing. Her Majesty Vera of the West is going to be back with us in 2 weeks. Next week, it's going to be Mistress Katla of the West Kingdom, who is an incredible bard, and she's an amazing human, one of my oldest friends in the SCA. And so I'm looking forward to that. We have a guest host next week too. That's going to be Viscountess Ciela, who was incidentally our second guest on the show.
So here we have better tech.
Yeah, right. Let's do a redo, a little bit of a redo. But yeah, after 52, we're going to take a month off and kind of just allow ourselves a little bit of breathing room and recuperation, and see what happens after that. So,
yep. So my shout out is going to go to Saga Saturday. They are doing some amazing work behind the scenes. If you want to get to know the sagas, if you want to get like Norse culture roots, they're doing some amazing research, and they are all busting tail to like bring documentation to it, have incredibly fun conversations. I'm just impressed every time I watch an episode. I really, really enjoy their presentations. This week, they are hitting a hard topic too, and they are talking about the co-opting of Norse symbol by neo-Nazi and Nazi groups. And they are talking about it through the timelines and how it's been applied. I really suggest tuning in. It's going to be a hard topic, and they have done the research and they've done the work to do the presentation. And so let's all give them some support and some love, and we'll go from there. Yeah. And then beyond that, what I want to say is I want to say thank you all for showing up, continuing to watch the show. We're really excited for the next couple of weeks, and then a little bit of a break before we come back and like try hitting this off again. It has been a year of pandemic. We are 1 week away from like this show going off for a year. And I just want to say we are here continuously because of all of you. Come hang out in the Discord server with us. We're going to continue to be there even during our break. We're going to continue like being our dorky selves. We're always available. So I want to say love you all and thank you so much. Like, share, and follow, and have a good evening.